feeling alone is one of the worst feelings there is. And all of a sudden, when you can not feel alone, you hear your stories, you hear your guest stories. Boy, it just adds a little like, oh, there's a light at the end of the tunnel here. I'm not swinging out on this branch by myself.
This week on the pod, I have my old friend from graduate school, Scott Fitzgerald, to talk about some of the issues coaches and staffers encounter working in athletics. Scott is the founder of Purscial, a coach and support system for coaches, executives, and administrators who serve others in environments where performance matters. A Caddy for coaches, someone in their corner to lighten the load and help them perform at their best.
But to the Caddy reference at the end of the day, I'll say my piece. We're in the woods and you're fired up and you think the, 230 slice between 3 trees over water is a good shot.
Go ahead.
I'm going to try like hell to convince you, no, that is not. Let's chip out in the fairway and we'll gain a stroke on the next hole. But if you are going to do it and it goes in the water, let's go to the water and figure out what's the next best shot.
We'll also address some of the issues we encountered in the sports work world, and he gives us some ideas on how we can adopt strategies to help us overcome some of the stressful things we encountered.
Boy, in athletics and life, that whole piece, it's so easy in this business to be angry and resentful. And if you think of 2 most unproductive emotions there might be as a human, it's that. But the environment puts us there so often.
Scott's biggest charge is for all of us to find joy in our work and in our lives, and that although results matter, it's the journey that we should all be focusing on.
To really get the best of yourself is to let go and truly embrace, I cannot control winning. And I really can't even come close.
This is the true story of 2 washed-up sports guys who chased the dream, private flights, championship rings, running sideline to sideline on per diem and adrenaline.
We gave our 20s and our 30s to the industry, pulled off miracles that were never in the job description. In return, low pay, long hours, and we still got cut from the team.
This is about what really happens behind the badge, the burnout, the bad bosses, the dream job that didn't love you back, but also the lifelong friendships, the chaos, the holy shit stories you couldn't make up. And somehow, despite everything, you'd still do parts of it all over again.
This is one for the ones who lived it, loved it, hated it, and still kind of miss it. For everyone who's ever asked, how in the hell did we survive that? We're 2 former sports insiders with more than 40 years of experience and more than enough scars to make fun of it all.
And just enough trauma to start a podcast instead of going to therapy.
I'm Brandon Barca.
And I'm Andy Boggs.
And this is No Longer Credentialed. We once had access, now we have opinions.
Sports.
So I guess I kind of want to just kind of get right to it. I mean, I've known you for a long time. You were a coach, Division I level, Division II level, Division III, everywhere. And then you also were an AD at the high school level for a long, long time. And so when did you have an epiphany to start Purscial and start helping coaches?
I'd say it started kind of around 2020 with the pandemic. I ended up there, a mountain range, just 48 4,000 footers up in the White Mountains. So a lot of people kind of take that on. And so me and a friend went up in the mountains. And it was one of the best things I could have ever done. You go up there and it's just such a different perspective. And as you guys know, and you've talked about extensively on the podcast, like when you're in the noise and the chaos, it gets normalized. So you almost think that's quiet. And then all of a sudden you go in the mountains and you are with nobody and up above tree line and the noise is gone, people are gone. And all of a sudden you're like, whoa. This perspective is a little different. And so for me, the high school AD component, it's had 34 sports, high focal point within the town, kind of like it felt like Hoosiers sometimes, where you can't even go to the grocery store without getting a dirty look. Really that allowed me to start gaining some clarity on, okay, which way is the proverbial scale tilting? Like it was always more good than challenge. and it had started just to shift for me because my favorite work was the work with coaches, the work with people, even being in the back when we were GAs, and it was just the people, the relationships, the laughs, the fun, the grind, but you were in it together. You were
Right.
poor together,
Right.
you scraped
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
together. The relationship piece, and for me, the administrative piece just started to take
Mm.
over. When I wanted 30 minutes with a coach, I had 3. And it just felt like, okay, this is an important role in terms of kids' experience. And in my heart, I got to a point where it shifted and just said, I'm not able to give it what it needs to. And it's also not giving me what I fully need out of it. So, time for me to roll the dice and make a shift and start really prioritizing the one on one work and the relationships again.
Did you see coaches struggling, or just to have this idea? I mean, you mentioned on your website, and we've talked a ton, that you're a caddy for coaches. Can you just kind of talk about what that means to you and what that means just for coaches in general, just to have somebody?
Yeah, that's a great question. So part of it in the beginning was still had a lot of relationships with coaches, and they felt alone.
Mm.
Would probably be the thing that pops up for them. As they felt like they were alone and didn't have really any place to turn to, especially these head coaches. So I started a Zoom group where it was just a bunch of coaches come together, and we'd have speakers and we'd have sessions with each other. It was just a place where they could feel free to talk about what they're struggling with, hear other people struggling the same thing and how hard it is, the emotions behind it. Funny, at 51 back in the, for us in the 70s and 80s, we weren't given a lot of tools to
No,
process emotions. Uh, and
no tools.
especially when you're in the athletic realm, in the Division 1 realm, it's not the environment necessarily that they, make up for those lack of tools. It probably goes the other way. So that's where it started. So the caddy is more, I was out front as an AD. I like being behind the
Mm.
scenes. I put that bib on with someone else's name on the back. I like carrying the
Mm.
clubs. I like building the trust. I give suggestions. I can see someone who wants to hit a driver off the deck, and I can give them 5 reasons why a 7-iron is a much better shot. And we can have that trust. But at the end of the day, if they pick driver,
Right.
all right, let's roll
Yeah.
and see where the shot goes. And so it's that support system that there's no supervisory component. So if I say I disagree, or they come in and just tell me why they're angry, or like that they're really struggling with coaching right now, they have that trust and faith that nobody's going to hold it against them. It's not popping back up. There's no "I told you so's."
Right.
It's, if we win the tournament, I'll be in the parking lot. I'll put the clubs in the trunk and I'll give you a hug. If we get cut, I'll put the clubs in the car, in the trunk, and I'll give you a hug when you get to the parking
Right.
lot. So just that, having someone there in everybody else's corner all the time, it's me as that person that can be in there, that they have who's in their corner.
Yep.
Coaches don't typically seem like a group that's wired to ask for personal help. And from your side of things, you're trying to develop this relationship with them, have honest dialogue with them. How do these conversations start? Is half the battle just getting them to the first meeting?
Yeah, and actually, word of mouth has been great because of, I'm not coming. These are high level professionals, so that I don't have, the Scott Fitzgerald method or the 4 Ps of leadership. It's coming in a way that I can be a person that says, "Hey, I think you're wrong here, and here's why," and normalize. What's been neat is the connections too with the people I work with. The normalize, like, I am struggling right now, and someone goes, "Yep, was there last month and will probably be there in a couple months," and them going, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one feeling this way. I think that's so common in so many human experiences, but that sadness is not weak, that anxiousness is not weak, that exhaustion is not failure, that losing isn't failure. And the other piece that I think of when you ask that question is, to really get the best of yourself is to let go and truly embrace, I cannot control winning. And I really can't even come close.
Right.
But that can borderline on indifference. And indifference is a kryptonite for anyone in athletics.
Yes.
Like, you're supposed to have drive and competitiveness and push the envelope. And all of a sudden you're like, letting go, and maybe you're suggesting you don't care, but you do care, that is really tough to reconcile. So it's walking through that of letting go is not saying I don't care. It's an indifference to the outcome that I know I can't control.
You're having to rewire their brains.
Oh, absolutely. Or clear some noise and allow for that part of them to rise to the top. Like it's there, the best parts of them. They know these are caring people, they're generous people, they're selfless people, they're driven people. But when your job depends on winning, boy, that can bury some of those things quickly. And a lot of times it's just like, all right, let's move some things aside so those parts of you can come out on a more regular basis.
So do you concentrate on the processes? Like, what are you having these guys, like, what are their focus? What do you, is it different? I'm sure it's different for every person, but what are you having them focus on? Just the day-to-day process of getting better, or I don't know. Just walk us through that.
Well, one is focus on themselves,
Mm.
and selfless people will look to serve others always and first. And the reality is if we're not the best version of ourselves, we're not fulfilling our service component in a way that we actually could. So it's taking kind of getting the focus to them so that they can put themselves in the best position. And sometimes, as an example, looking at coaching as a performance. So if I'm a hockey coach and we have pregame meal at 2:00 and it's 2-2 heading into the third period and it's 8:15 and I haven't worked on myself and I haven't eaten in over 6 hours and taken a few sips of water, my team needs my, mental, emotional, cognitive best, and my mind and body are shutting down because I'm focused on everyone else. And it's more little tweaks such as not only like kind of an inner work, inner peace component, but also like, okay, second and third period, they don't need 6 things to work on.
Right.
They need you to go refuel, get something to eat, get something to drink, set an emotional tone that's productive, and then go get after it with them for the next, however many minutes. So they need you. So it's a performance because you think, oh, I'm not playing. That's not a performance. Well, you have to bring your attributes to the table and the highest level at the highest level possible. That is performing. And so you got to set yourself up to do that.
So I don't want you to out any of your clients, but what are the top, let's say, 3 things that you address in your business with your clients?
One is the letting go piece. How to reconcile. You're judged on something that you have very little control over. All you can do is influence it. And the other piece, I would say the second thing is there's no arrival point. You guys touched on the Scotty Scheffler, which it was so awesome to hear him say that, because this fictitious arrival point is often created. If we get this new building, that's all we need, we'll be fine. Well, then you get a new building. And then, oh, if we get this, or if we win a national title, there's this flag we put at the top of the mountain, we climb the mountain, we pull the flag, and life's perfect. And the reality is, like Scotty said, I can't tell you how many times coaches have said the biggest emotion I felt was relief.
Yeah. Yep.
So you create this fictitious arrival point, and then the only 2 emotions are either frustration or relief.
Right.
And you've unintentionally extracted joy
Right.
out of something we've all would have and have done for nothing.
Right.
You guys, same thing. Stats, stories, social media, like you do it for nothing. You guys are doing this podcast for nothing.
We are.
It's so much of it is like that childlike play, the joy, making a priority. Like how can we extract as much joy out of something we actually love as possible? I'd say, and the third kind of depends on, so if you're an assistant and you're striving maybe to be ahead, what's that process like? Like, how do you go into an interview and not talk about what you think they want to hear rather than just expressing who you are? Or if you're a head coach, you're in your 50s and you had energy to be on the road all the time, and that energy is not what it was when you were 28. So how do we make adjustments that, again, you can navigate the environment adeptly, but also be conscious like, hey, I'm not the same person I was 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
How have they been receptive to joy? Boggs and I have been part of teams that have celebrated national championships, and you see the coach off to the side, maybe sometimes not fully celebrating what the moment is, or the next day they're thinking about, like Scheffler said, on to the next tournament, that mindset. Have you had some success starting to make them rethink things on how joyful things can be?
So here's an example of a coach who is capable, I think, of coaching at any level. Is at a kind of a mid-major level. And one of the things he and I worked on about that joy piece is not worrying about, okay, what's the next job? Or if we don't win, will anybody think I can coach at the next level or go to, these big time schools, Power Four schools? And it's going through that process of like, what is it you want? Because it's also a spot that your family's happy and you have more time. Yeah, you could get a bigger recruiting budget, but you could be on the road 30 more days. That's 30 less days with your family, those type of conversations. And so we were down at a conference together and got to have coffee. And he's like, I'd like to give you some feedback. He said, I've been coming to this conference for over 20 years, and this is the first time I feel like I can be myself. And I was like,
Wow.
geez,
That's
man.
great.
I'm like, what a great feeling. And if you think about it, in some ways, maybe so many of us are just trying to get that feeling of freedom. When you feel free, like, boy, you navigate challenge better. You navigate disagreement better. You aren't afraid to roll the dice when you know it's a good risk because you have this freedom. But when this weight of like, who's going to think this, or what role do I have to play? I feel like I'm in some movie and I have to play a role I don't even want to play, that freedom piece. That's where it's like, okay, we know there's something next. We know this isn't an arrival point, but we also know, like, hey, let's enjoy this as long as
Right.
possible. And then we can we get back to work. But I think that's what's with part of it is not only knowing there's not an arrival point. So when you win, you can enjoy it, but also when you lose, let's not go too low with that because we know a win, it doesn't provide this endless, endless relief or you've gotten there. Like, let's keep the range we operate in here so we can get sad and we can enjoy it, but we're not going way up and way down. But yeah, that's kind of an example of I was so happy for him that he could just have that freedom just to walk around and be really happy with who he is and the journey he's on and where he's at and how he's going to continue to grow, but just was able to let go and just enjoy the relationships he's formed over the years.
Yeah, we've heard a lot from coaches, DMs. Just we kind of touch on burnout. I think we're both two burnouts. Just wanted to ask you about what you've encountered on that side of the ledger when it comes to coaching, because we had Dr. Hummel on. He's done a lot of research on staffs and athletic departments, but coaches, man, I hate that they're kind of like carnies sometimes. Like they're in a community for a year and then they leave, and then they're there at another place for 18 months and they leave and their family doesn't get it. So there's this family dynamic going on there. I'm just interested to hear what you've heard on that front.
Oh, yeah, it's real. And it's that kind of you created this identity around something. And then all of a sudden you start having conversations with yourself like, boy, not only do I not necessarily like it as much, but it's having an impact on all areas of my life. And that's where that self-care comes in. Like, how can you sustain this as long as possible in an intense environment? And sometimes that might be making a change. Like for admin too, there's an admin I work with, and he really connects. Like he's motivated by connections with students, working with students. And the higher you get up as an admin, as you guys know, the almost farther away you really get from students. And so part of the journey was like, okay, he ended up shifting gears, staying from going from athletic admin into student life. And to see, he's had so many people comment when they see him, they're like, wow, you feel lighter, almost like the Roy Kent, like you feel lighter. It was just being okay. Like I loved it while I was doing it, but I had the wherewithal and the clarity to say, okay, it's just shifted for me now. And I really know what drives me, and I'm going to make that shift. But yeah, that burnout piece, coaches are
Mm-hmm.
grinders. That's what makes it so hard. Anybody in athletics, you guys, grinders. you can absorb a lot. So it's tough to find that fine line of like, does this feel like I'm quitting because it's too hard? Or does it actually just I'm become a different person and this is not what resonates with me anymore? But so often coaches can grind their way through it and get to this like crash point, which is I think what you guys are hearing about and seeing, like grind, 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 grind off a
Right.
cliff.
Do you run into those conversations with coaches where they're saying, "Hey, I don't know if I can do this anymore."
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's in some cases, it's like, okay, this coming year, let's coach in a way that is freeing, that freedom part, and let go and see how you feel at the end. And if at the end you got to make a change, like that's the good part. All of you guys, very capable people. So there's options out there. It just doesn't feel ideal, but it's absolutely having those conversations. And that's scary and it's upsetting, but it's like getting to a point of let's take a time frame to step back, get a little more perspective, and really look into, okay, because you can make an emotional decision because something happens or somebody goes nuts in the office or something crazy happens, but it's nicer to take that step back and go, I'm feeling all these emotions, let me process those and actually do that kind of in the aggregate, which way is the scale tipping. But oh yeah, that's a very real conversation. And it's exciting actually when they're feeling that and can actually commit to, I'm going to actually look at this with clarity to see is this something I still want to do.
Does the light just click on? Does it happen? My son learns how to swim, and it's like a light just clicks on, and he just can swim. Does it just click on for them, or like how long does the process take for coaches to kind of overcome everything they've ever really known?
It's definitely not a light switch. I actually use the analogy. One of my favorite books, Rick
Mm-hmm.
Rubin, the for all of us our
That's right.
ages, the 90s hip
Yep.
hop fans of Public Enemy and Run DMC and the Beastie Boys as a music producer. Well, he wrote a book called The Creative Act. Phenomenal book. Just so many connections between being an artist and a coach or working in athletics. But it kind of resonated with me. He didn't use the analogy, but like a soundboard. So when you have a soundboard, it's not a breaker switch. Like, oh, flip 1, 17, and 21 and you'll something will pop up. It's more of like, hey, I've worked at a volume 10. I'm going to turn it down and see how that sounds. I'm going to turn the treble down, the bass up, whatever that is, and just see how it sounds. And understanding like the first album is going to sound different than the fifth album because you're a different
Mm.
person. And so as you tweak the dial, it's just taking the time. It's like, it's not reactionary. It's, boy, I'm feeling this way. I'm gonna test it out. I'm gonna test the theory. Nope, I think we can turn it back up. Or, boy, that sounds or feels a lot better. So that almost that soundboard analogy, that it's how do we get in a process where we can tweak the dials, see how it sounds, and kind of grow in the profession, but also grow as a human and accept like, all right, time to make a change because
Right.
what sounded good before doesn't sound as good now.
Yeah, I just seemed to me, I've worked with some coaches that were so results oriented, and I think it drove them off the cliff near the end of the year. It's just everybody's just sick of each other. And I think it's because of that situation. I just think the coach was so results oriented. And, when the results didn't happen, things hit the fan. Practices were harder, longer, lots more yelling, all that stuff. It's just to flip that switch to get coaches to think that way. It's got to be a pretty difficult process.
Yeah, and that's where that self-exploration comes into play. We read a ton of books. One of the coaches laughed like Young Pueblo as a trilogy that's actually it's poetry.
Mm,
But again, as a 51-year-old male and looking for tools to process emotions, sometimes people who have a gift with words can put things in a way that you're like, boy, that resonates. That's okay. That's what I'm feeling. That's what this means. How do I process that? So we'll read books and it's so neat to, from one coach to the next, highlight
mm,
totally different things. Or I read it and highlight it. And then I'll be reading it for the third time with a coach and they bring something up. I'm like, how did I miss that part?
right.
So it's this, yeah, long process of up and getting better a little bit and getting worse. And then like in the times where you feel like, boy, I was doing so well. And now I'm having this reaction that kind of goes away from the direction I'm working towards and be like, no, you have 20 years of programming here.
Right.
This isn't a switchboard.
Right.
It's gonna naturally come back. How they react to a loss.
Yeah.
Or all of a sudden in the middle of the game, they're screaming at the kids, they're screaming at the officials. They're like, man, I went 4 games without doing that. Well, you're not a robot.
Right.
We didn't reprogram. We're gonna take step backs, and it's that awareness. It's not the perfection of just going, oh, I choose this and this nice 45-degree upward angle. It's the awareness to go, I got a little out of bounds, or I felt out of balance today. Okay, why was that? How do I make that tweak? Or was that just kind of an anomaly? And like, I'll just walk in with a little more awareness next time. But yeah, it's a process. And the thing is, it's one that what's been neat is the organic process of working with people. I don't like it. The approach doesn't resonate with everybody. So are they at a point, whether it's brand new as a head coach? I have first year head coaches, assistants, to all the way 30 years, coaches who are national coach of the year, coach in the Olympics, kind of everything in between. It's like, where are they? And is it something like, hey, I want to dig into this a little bit here.
How much are the coaches you work with, how much are they trapped in fear? Obviously, you mentioned joy before and getting them in that mindset, but I could see in my own work how a lot of times I used fear or uncertainty to then translate it to sort of like an adversity, to then translate it to something to drive me. Do you see a lot of fear from coaches? Will they admit that?
Talk about fear. When I made this transition, I was not getting rich as an AD, but very secure. And all of a sudden, I have like driving in May and I'm starting July 1st full time. And I'm like, I have a panic attack on the highway because you're like, this went from a great idea to this has to work. And what if it doesn't work? Or what if I'm not good enough? Like, what if I'm not skilled like I think I am? And that it's natural for us all, and coaches are not immune to that. Like, what if this means I'm not good at something I thought I was pretty good at? But what's so cool is at the same time, it's that I think that's a very healthy part of the process, because you're testing your theories, you're testing things, but they also can say most of the time with confidence in this very grounded way, I'm really good at my job. I'm really good at my job, but I'm also equally as curious. And so the fear, natural, healthy. Loss of curiosity, that's when I get afraid or nervous, because it's like, no, I have this thing figured out. It was like, none of us do and none of us ever will.
Right.
So yeah, I would say fear, healthy, lack of curiosity, that's when people should be afraid.
Fitzy, let's talk about passion. Like a lot of people in our business, I mean, Bark and I included, we did it because we had a passion for it. And then sometimes that passion can lead us into some pretty bad places. I'm sure your coaches grind harder than we did. I mean, they're on the road more, they're working a lot. It's all because they have a passion for helping kids and a passion for their sport and coaching. So I want to pick your brain on how you address passion with your clients.
Yeah, passion can manifest in so many different ways. Passion can be the animated coach, or a level of personality during different times. But passion, I think, in talking about fear, that's when fear can pop up. Because when you're passionate about something, but now you're questioning that, at times you're like, okay, am I not the person I thought I was? Or what if I can't find something that I actually enjoy? Like, maybe I'm not enjoying this, but I don't know if I can find something that I even mildly like, let alone like it as much as I did at one point. I think that fear part comes in. So that you found this passion, I would do it for free type thing. And that's where fear comes in, because you're like, I feel like I need to make a change or change some things about this. But boy, I haven't spent a lot of time exploring other interests or passions. I'm fine. I'll fine. I'll just grind this out, because that journey scares me. So passion can be a double-edged sword, because you're like, man, this is awesome. And like you guys talked about, I'm courtside at the NCAA tournament. Boy, this is so much fun. Great. I can take another coach screaming at me for no reason and silence on the bus and we're going berserk. And then you sit in those moments like, but I'm on the sidelines here. That's what makes, because you really get this real feeling of like, am I going to even find something that I mildly enjoy? I don't even know.
Right. So how do you get these people to manifest different passions? I mean, where do they have the time?
Two parts to that. One, their own passion, that passion that they want to do it and they're passionate about it. I had a conversation the other day with an admin about making sure to have a behind the closed door space. If we want to do historical things, you're going to need a very passionate, driven, like
Yeah.
energetic person who has almost no fear. No one's ever done this before, and I'm delusional enough to think I
Right.
can,
Right.
And so allowing a space for that passion to come out where it's frustrating and they got to have a reaction to something, and you give a space where that's where I do too. They can come out and just be like, woof. All of a sudden we're using a flamethrower.
Right.
And it's like, great, let's have a portion of the woods where we can burn the woods down. But then let's get this sucker down to a Bunsen burner and actually put that passion into more of a focus. The other piece is not, again, understanding this is not, they love coaching, but I don't know, they're not a coach. You're a human who really likes coaching.
Right.
But you're also a mother, you're also a father, you're also a partner, a spouse, your brother, sister, all of those things. So taking those time, one of the big things is just not feeling guilty or also not feeling unproductive to go explore other things, read books, read a Rick Rubin book and dive into that and see what's interesting there. Like there's a fine line for coaches between contentment and complacency. Because all of a sudden you sit for too long, you're going, does that mean I'm not moving forward? Does that mean someone else is doing something that they're getting ahead and we're not, or we're falling behind? And it's like, part of it is like, shut that conversation off. Let's explore. Let's turn it off. And it's not you'll hear in the business world or other sections, like, go home and just shut it off. When you're passionate about something, you're not shutting it off. Like, you don't just turn it off and I'm not going to think about coaching. It's more of, how do you create the environment? Like if you have little kids, you have family dinner, you get to feed them, you focus on that, you get them in bed, you do the bedtime stories, they're in bed by 8. Then it's okay to go, I'm going to watch film because I love it and I get joy out of it. And I love the strategic part and the chess match of it. And now everybody's in a good spot. We filled the family cup. Everyone's in bed. Wife or husband is off reading a book. I can go watch film for an hour and really enjoy it and get some benefit out of it and putting their day like that. But yeah, it's interesting that restlessness is a big thing, that oh, am I complacent? And just understanding, like, you don't have to shut it off. Someone said one time, I forget who said it, but the beauty in life is in the periphery. And when you get people who are competitive, you get tunnel vision. And at times it's just opening and allowing yourself to be accessible to the periphery in life.
Yeah.
So we can take little dips and drabs of something different. Does it resonate? Yeah, it does. Maybe I'll dip in there again. That type of thing. It just open it up to the periphery in life, really.
Sponsored by.
Today's episode is brought to you by Lloyd Christmas IOUs, the official financial strategy of every athletic director trying to find money that doesn't exist. Got a star quarterback demanding millions? Hand him a manila envelope and say, "Don't worry, kid. These are as good as money." IOUs scribbled on cocktail napkins, golf scorecards, and Morton's dinner receipts charged directly to the department. Go ahead, add it up. Every cent's accounted for. That's Lloyd Christmas IOUs. We'll pay you back someday. Maybe.
No Longer Credentialed is also backed by the Dead Media Society, a union of media members who are no longer allowed in the press box. Said too much about the team you cover? Pissed off the comms department stuck babysitting a psycho coach? Well, now you've been banned from one lukewarm slice of Papa John's per game. SID departments, playing bad cop in press boxes since 1982. Say something critical about our soft as Charmin head coach? Don't go there. These power-hungry maniacs could squash our nuts into oblivion. Sure, you wanted full transparency with your media pass, but we wanted a career, a really shitty one. So, no credential for you. It's not personal, it's a business decision. Check back in a few weeks, and we'll still be taking it personally.
Unbelievable.
Coaches are, I would say, even from my end working athletics, you see them as these powerful figures. You think that they're always have to be on, they're always in control. They're leading a team of men and women that can range anywhere from maybe 8 to 10 staff to over 100 on staff. And I think there's this misperception. And the feedback that we're getting from coaches is not all of these coaches are power four football coaches or basketball coaches making 6 or 7 figure salaries per year and always in the spotlight. And they just need to suck it up because that's how the profession is. Because what we hear is there are a lot of overworked, underpaid coaches out there that are really grinding, especially when you look at the Olympic sports. And there is a ton of pressure to win. And what can we do on our ends to break those walls down and say, you know what? It might not be as glamorous or powerful as you think.
Yeah, and that goes back to the identity as being a coach. There's that part. There's the ego extraction. One of the books I enjoy, a philosophical book, it's the Tao Te Ching, ancient book, been interpreted over 100 times. One of the passages in there, I'm not saying it exactly, but essentially, if you're going up or down the ladder, your position is shaky.
Mm.
The only way to have balance is with 2 feet on the ground.
Mm.
And like, none of us are big deals, but the experience is a big deal to the student athletes that are going through it. So we want to make it a big deal while simultaneously understanding none of us are big deals. Like, we're all trying to do the best we can. Some days we know exactly what we're doing. It's like parenting.
Yeah.
Some days you're like, wow, I'm pretty, I think I got this down pat. And then next day you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I'm totally guessing right now. And being okay with that, like, you don't have to put, when you're a head coach in charge and people look to you for answers, that can be burdensome because you always feel like you have to have the answer. And sometimes you're like, I have no clue. But so many people are looking for me to do that. So having that, I think listening to podcasts like yours and just hitting pause and just kind of reflecting in that way and sitting in the fear a little bit and understanding, like, I don't have to have answers all the time. I'm going to try to find as many times, as a head coach, you're going to have a lot, but the burden of being the final decision maker is real. And that impacts coaches heavily. And so that's when they get into this, oh, I got to be this head coach. And yeah, we're not, at the end of the day, none of us are a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
I always joke when our son was little, you're in your mind, you're like, oh, I'm thinking professional and accomplishment, doing all those things. And then your mind's wandering and you're changing your son's diaper, and all of a sudden he takes a piss in your face. And you're like, how big of a deal are you now, Holmes? And you look down and you see your child looking at you, and they don't care how many points you scored, how many wins you had, how many titles you
Yeah.
have, or coach of the year trophies you've got. At the end of the day, the people who care about us just want us to care about them back.
Right.
And
Yeah.
our status is meaningless, at the end of the day. So yeah, it's a lot of those conversations. They'll get into me like, okay, one of the coaches is like, when we were talking about fire or passion, coach was like, I'm glad you haven't zenned out all the fire in you. I'm like, well, not all of it, but just some of it.
So I'm going to address something with you that that we talked about before, is like people taking advantage of your passion. Do you ever see that? I mean, I kind of felt that way in my position. I'm sure Barca maybe has in his, where, we gave all we ever had, professionally to a job. And then at the end of the day, we just get thrown out like a piece of trash. And I just don't, how do you address that? If people out there are feeling that, like, how would you tell them to address that?
I would say there are coaches out there that are not going to do that. If you identify as a coach and I need to be a winning coach, it's easy to fall in the trap of everyone here is to serve me and my quest for
Okay.
greatness because I'm the one capable of leading us there.
Right.
And so remember those days when we were GAs, or you get back in there and it's like when the good people like you guys were there, like that team was the team.
Mm-hmm.
It was sports information. It was an athletic trainer. It was strength and conditioning. It was, the marketing person, our whole staff, everybody involved. And now, a number of the coaches I work with, they have weekly meetings with everybody. What's going on with sports information? What's going on with everybody who can impact the student athlete? Sports information, all those things we talked about. What are your needs? What are my needs? What are the program's needs? Hey, do we have blind spots? Are we missing anything? And sports information could say, hey, we've got a big week with golf is in the championship. Field hockey is in the championship. I know you guys have a big match. We're a little stretched this week. Can we strategize going into the week so like, hey, we got a lot to juggle? Same with athletic, those type of things. I would say for people who are feeling that right now, what makes it hard and scary is if you're at the place you grew up near or you loved, or I loved Vanderbilt, and all of a sudden I'm there and it's like, as part of the weighing, it's the scale tipping which way? It's like, there are people out there that will value what you do and bring to the table, because when it was all locked in, it took everybody to make it happen. And that was the fun. Like when you could celebrate and good things happen, it was awesome to have everybody there celebrating. Like that was a killer story.
Yeah.
Or in between, guys flew up in stats and you saw something, you're like, man, he got me that quick. We got to make this adjustment. Athletic trainer right on there. Like it took everybody doing their part and understanding like this was a big puzzle. So I would just say there are people out there who understand that, who get that, and there are environments where you can combine your passion and feel like that you're appreciated. Brad Stevens one time said, he talked about his roster and he has the best players in the world. And, NBA's roster, 14 or 15, and they maybe play 7 or 8 down the stretch. And he said, my role is to make sure I communicate how everyone adds value to winning. Find people who will commit to that, because everybody does.
Do you see a lot with coaches, let's call it the loneliest seat in the building? Coaches are wired, obviously, to make sure they're looking after the wellness of their players and their staff and making sure they're moving in the right direction. And I love what you're doing as a caddy for coaches. Who have you found is actually checking on the wellness of our coaches?
That's exactly one of the reasons I got into it. Because you look at a hockey bench or a basketball bench, you move one chair down, it is exponentially different. As an assistant, it's not quantifying hard or investment. Everyone's investing a ton. It just is so different. As an assistant, as an example, you're not the final decision maker when it comes to the lineup. So you can be honest. You can talk kids through things. You can be that person. You have these great relationships. And that's what makes you feel alone, because when you're the final decision maker, in some ways you're making or breaking the experience, because you're decide this kid's on the bench and this kid's not. You're deciding what's their schedule. You're deciding, you're in charge of the budget. You're in charge of talking to alumni. You're the face of the program. You can get credit, but you can get all the blame in the world. And how do you navigate? People are leaning on you left and right. As an assistant, people are kind of, you're alongside. When you're ahead, all of a sudden everybody's leaning down on you and you're like, gosh, this is a heavy burden, which takes a toll. And then you have to go home and be part of a family as well. So that's what there's a number of people doing. I was exposed to Cody Royal, who wrote a book, The Tough Stuff, 7 Hard Truths of Being a Head Coach, and The Second Set of Eyes he wrote as well. Guy Travis Wyckoff. It's not as prevalent as it could be. Hopefully it goes in that direction, but people understand it like, hey, we pay you lots of money. Figure it out. The importance of these roles is so significant, and the intensity of it and the landscape is changing so much that we can look at the old days and go, oh, we grinded that out. I walked uphill both ways. Well, there was residual impact to that it was not this perfect scenario. So it's, how do we provide support system for these people who are decision makers, who have to shoulder the burden and are willing to do it. But boy, isn't it better if we can get the best out of them and sustain that as long as humanly possible. If we can do that, that's benefit. So support isn't failure. Support isn't weakness. In many ways, support is crucial, because that's what they're doing. They look at like, well, you're supposed to support others.
From a more practical side too, it's I don't want to get business oriented, but it saves athletic departments a lot of money from having to pay zombie contracts because they didn't take care of their coaches while they were there. So why don't you just cultivate what's happening inside your walls with coaches to make them better? I mean, to me, at the end of the day, it saves them money, right?
100%. If you're looking from the business side, there are times, how many times it's like, okay, I get a call or get a text, and you remember seeing this, both of you. You're in the throes of it. You're on a 3-game losing streak. You just had a game where you felt the refs weren't good. The attitude wasn't great from the team. And then you get on the bus and everyone's hooting and hollering and you're tired and you're exhausted. And if you can have a spot where you can get to the hotel and go call somebody
Yeah.
and say what you want to say in that
Yeah.
moment, and then we dig to what's most productive to say or not say, like that's part of that support, because it's so intense and sometimes you hit your breaking point and you need someone. You're about to go off the road and you just need a few, the guardrail there or the bumper, little throwing up the bumpers and bowling.
Yeah.
Like, you just need to bump back on the lane here because it's understandable to go to the edges of it. It's just having another set of eyes and someone saying, hey, let's gain perspective here. Is losing your mind on your team going to be helpful? Does that make you any better?
Right.
No, it only makes me feel better.
Right.
Okay, understandable. But if our focus is how do we get this team better, let's go. Let's hit pause and that's one common one, and you guys have seen it. What's the right reaction to a loss?
Right.
What's the length of time that people need to be upset? I don't know.
either.
Who
Yeah.
knows? And so, like, I've had conversations with coaches. Sometimes kids' abilities to bounce back quick is absolutely helpful for us because we want to wallow in misery for the longest amount of time possible. And all of a sudden, a 20-year-old brings you out and gives you perspective. Like, let's not ruin team dinner.
That's right.
Like, we'll get back to work
Yeah.
next week. Let's just go have some chicken pie or something or some pizza and enjoy it. And like, sometimes those kids can go, man, they're just not holding on to it as long as I am, and they don't have to.
Yeah.
And actually, that's helpful to
Yeah.
me. But having a partner that can give some clarity in moments like that.
It just seems, Barkin, we talk about this so much. People are probably tired of it. But if athletic directors would just cultivate these type of thoughts and with just regular staffers, and they would save so much money. People would love to go work there. But it just doesn't happen that way in our business. It just doesn't happen. And we just kind of ask ourselves, why doesn't it happen? Is it just because they don't have to? There's 50,000 resumes coming in if I leave? Or it's just so vital to having a positive work experience. And it just doesn't happen at places. I just don't know why.
Yeah, to Scott's point on a lot of things is I think it's missing the human element.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, so now as you guys see the business model move,
Right.
you're getting more and more admin who have never coached. And that's okay. But let's be honest about that on both sides. So part of like my role can be to bridge that gap. So an AD can say, I don't know anything about coaching. I don't know what's a super talented player. Like, I can look at scores and say, oh, we seem to be winning a lot. We must be talented. But and then they get into part of like the administrative side is to move up. You get sports supervisory roles. Now I got to supervise somebody. So now I'm supervising and overseeing a coach. I don't really know anything about coaching. I don't even know anything about supervising, but they put me here and this is vital for me to climb the ladder. And no one's going to be honest about what the situation really is. Like, let's put it on the table. Be honest. I know nothing about coaching, but I do know numbers. I do know marketing. I do know fundraising. So guess what? I can work our budget to provide the support for you to go work with people who do know coaching.
Right.
I can also work with you about budget and big picture. I can also talk to you about, yes, you have all of these needs and we're asking for those needs, but there's 15 other programs that we also have to take care of the Olympic sports, all of these things. So that you create a team of people where you utilize everybody's strengths because everyone wants to go in the same direction. I think often we're just not honest. Well, that AD doesn't understand. Maybe, but you're also not understanding. They're talking to a provost,
right,
or a president, or someone who's giving them edicts, and they're not going to come and badmouth the president in the coaches
Right.
meeting. And at times, like as an AD, I went into the office and basically they told me to get out or I get fired. And I battled for, I said to coaches at some point, like, if I come with edicts that make no sense, I just need you to trust I'm battling for you,
Right.
but I'm not coming to this meeting and bad mouthing everybody involved. It's not productive for any of
Right.
us. It's that honesty, trying to create these, to Barker's point, like the relationships and the connection and the human element of it, and prioritizing, be honest. I don't know anything about coaching, but that's why we hired you.
Right.
So I won't pretend I do. So like, as an example, one of the conversations can be, hey, what do you need, win or lose, after a game? How can I support you? Some, like, after a loss, I just kind of want to be left alone. But for others, the sports admin leaves them alone and they're going, what are they
Right.
thinking? Does that mean they want me fired? So they prefer like someone to swing by and see that they were at the game and go, hey, tough one.
Yeah.
Hang in there. You guys are doing a great job.
Yeah.
Or as a coach, you're talking to an admin and saying, you know nothing about coaching, but you can see effort. You can watch my demeanor. Can you watch my demeanor during the game?
Right.
Give me some thoughts on that afterwards. You know, finding a role for people to help each other out. But the gap is growing way too wide between admin and coaches in the departments. I think just that human element and just being honest and saying, hey, how can we all add value to winning here?
That's another way that you come in. You've had experience in both coaching and being an AD. And so that's a extremely valuable asset that you're providing to coaches or departments.
And it's funny, like with that level of trust and my ability to be uniquely honest, I also can look at a coach and be like, hey, you're wrong here, man. Like, I know you're fired up about that. And this seems like, oh, that, I can't believe they made that decision, but you're not thinking of the big picture. They want to help you. You want that extra coach. Well, okay, that's $80,000 total with benefits, let's say. Well, 6 other coaches, as soon as that happens, are going to want the same thing. They don't have $500,000 lying around. Make it a priority, give them time to plan, those type of conversations, which is, I don't supervise them. I don't evaluate them. So I can have that conversation and they can ignore me or not ignore me, but I get to say it. And I think that's where someone said one time, both sides understand, like putting kind of ego aside to say, what's the best way to achieve the thing we want to achieve? Like, I can trust somebody to come in there and be honest. My role, I try to help both sides.
In a way that has to be refreshing for a head coach, no matter at any level. I can think back to a story. We had a football coach in the SEC making $3 million a year. And I remember going into the football ops office and saying, hey, look, coach can't do what he's about to do for some marketing initiative that's coming out that he had his brain on, that he really wanted to put out in public. The ops person was like, well, let me take you into his office so you can tell coach.
Right.
Which is, a lot of times coaches are surrounded by, I don't want to say yes people. And so it's refreshing. I would have to think what you're providing, the transparency, because I went in there not given any F's. And I said, coach, look, this is why we shouldn't do this. Coach was at the end of it, after a 3-minute speech, maybe was like, okay, we're not doing it. How have coaches that you've worked with been receptive to the transparency?
I would say it's even shifted to some maybe even rely on that from me, because we can disagree with each other in such a productive way. There's no quest to be right, and there are no I told you so's. So we go back and forth and discuss points, and sometimes it's think about it, let's revisit it. I had a coach the other day, it's like, calls me one morning, he's like, yeah, thanks for the conversation. I didn't sleep last night because you had me thinking about all this stuff. And we're laughing, but that leads to this great dialogue of, and I come back and like, yeah, you can go in there and someone's like, I'm not saying that, coach. I'd be like, are you out of your mind? What are you thinking? That's a good idea right now. You sure about that? And you build that trust and that relationship and the reliance of someone that can look at them, because they also don't want to lean on the people they supervise. How much do you want to open up to a person you may have to fire at some point if they're not doing what they need to? So that's where they're supervising so many, and I'm not supervising them. I mean, they can discontinue the relationship,
Right.
but we go into it knowing like, hey, if I can't be honest with you, what are we doing? But to the caddy reference, at the end of the day, I'll say my piece. You want to, we're in the woods and you're fired up and you think the, slight 230 slice between three trees over water is a good shot.
Go ahead.
I'm going to try like hell to convince you, no, that is not. Let's chip out in the fairway and we'll gain a stroke on the next hole. But if you are going to do it and it goes in the water, let's go to the water and figure out what's the next best shot. And then in our reflection process, look back on like, hey, now that you're done with the round, what do we think about that shot? And sometimes like I'd hit it again. Okay. Or I don't know. But yeah, it's nice to have no quest to be right and no I told you so's. It just opens up so many opportunities for great dialogue and great disagreement.
Shouldn't all of our relationships be that way, Fitzy? I mean, honestly, don't we? Isn't that what we try to get? Like, that's the purest of all relationships, is to be that way. Like, don't judge somebody or whatever. Don't I told you so. Just you're just there to listen and help if needed.
And for me, part of the thing, like with all the dipping into the philosophy, my kind of inner work that I do all the time, like one of the things to leverage the golf metaphors as we go along here, but I just think limiting the number of things we have really strong opinions about, it seems to be beneficial. Like, the saying in golf, they used to teach golf, hold the club like a wounded bird. So you don't, you got a wounded bird, don't want to drop it. It's like you don't want to swing a club and the club flies, but you don't want to choke the club. You want to swing freely. It's like, hold on to, if you've put a lot of work into formulating mindsets and thoughts about things and directions you want to go. So we're not wavering or just flailing in the wind that way, but it's leaving yourself open to constantly test theories. Test the theories. And there's some, like a kindness, like a generosity, that are going to hold up that's why I love ancient philosophy. They have stood the test of time. But so many of the philosophies, and especially if you're a 25-year-old assistant or a 45-year-old head coach, you're going to test the philosophy and go, yeah, that doesn't hold water anymore. I got to make a shift. And by not holding on so strongly, you give yourself the space to say, yeah, I didn't think that. I got to make a change. That's not the most effective way, or that's not working anymore.
Yeah. So, like, for me, and I think a lot of people feel this way, it's like, so my son draws a picture, gets the crayons out. He's like, Daddy, will you draw a picture with me? I was like, sure. But you have these things in your mind, but you don't, you're kind of afraid to do it. But then you just do it and it turns out okay. It's just, to me, it's the fear of the perfection, right? To me, it's like, I'm not good at that, or we're not good at a podcast, so why should I even try? And so I'm sure you see that a lot too, where perfection is, it really gets in the way of progress and change and success, right?
It's interesting that, to re-reference the Rick Rubin book, he talks so much about making art for yourself, not for other people, because then the best of you comes out, and ironically, other people are going to enjoy it more.
Right.
And so it's that. It was great to hear the emotion of your last episode when you were reading the feedback. Because it was so honest and real, and an accumulation of, man, a lot of craziness and hard stuff. And it's hard not to get angry and resentful over, boy, there were times where you feel like, and people are feeling like now, like, why am I treated this way? It's not okay. But when you can not try to be perfect, and when you can and release it and let it go and connect with people who are kind of feeling the same thing, then it adds a little perspective to it, and you can kind of roll with it a little more, and then it doesn't pile up. Each one, you can kind of look at it and deal with it and then let it go. And that's where I think, boy, in athletics and life, that the whole piece, it's so easy in this business to be angry and resentful. And if you think of two most unproductive emotions there might be as a human, it's that. But the environment puts us there so often. So like what you guys are doing, are creating a community, the ability to be honest and let some emotion out, that you feel that, and just don't let it build up, and can let it go. Because at the end of the day, it's like, boy, if we hold on to that stuff, you can think about the coach that was screaming and yelling or you got fired by, and you're like, who am I impacting? Her, him, or me? If I'm feeling that anger and resentment, well, I'm only impacting myself. So it's a crazy business, man. Double-edged
Can't even
sword.
imagine.
It's the best, like same parenting. It's the most
Ugh,
amazing thing. And sometimes you're like, oh my
what am I
gosh.
doing?
This is the part of the show we want to hear your pitch about what you do. What does the process look like for starting with you and starting sessions, and what happens week to week? And during the relationship, what do you hope someone feels after some time with you?
It's funny. This is not going to sound very aspirational, uh, but I just hope to be helpful, to add value. And that's going to look different for each person. And ideally for me, it's a mutually beneficial scenario, that there's a connection there. I derive great benefit from my relationship with the people I work with. And my hope is you can give and take equally. It's such a fun scenario when you can do that. So that's kind of the goal. But when we meet, it's like, okay, are we connected in our approach and our philosophy? Does it feel like it could be helpful? And then if we do start working together, it's usually weekly Zooms. Pick a time, day and time, once a week. We say it's an hour. A lot of times those hours go by pretty quickly, but it's all on what comes up for them. And we talk, a lot of times it's reading. So it's funny. Sometimes people love the off season to read. Their brain's more open to that. Other times coaches like in season, because a 4-hour bus ride, they have time there and they want to be productive in that moment. So we read a ton. We just talk about a lot of different things, whatever that comes up. And it depends on the time of year, depends on how the team's doing, the person and where they're at. So it's those weekly check-ins. And then I'm also available, like we talked about, phone or text. If something pops up and they just need somebody to chat with, I'm there as well. But it's my focus to build that trust, to really find as many ways possible to add value, to never suggest I have answers, and to be that person who throws the bib with their name on the back and wear that with pride and find out how I can help. Sometimes that is honesty. Sometimes that's honesty on the other side, like, hey, you're doing a really good job and it's okay to pat yourself on the back here. But for me, it's that relationship component. It's not, I guess it falls maybe into a consultancy realm. But when I was talking to different people about how to formulate this, the short-term thing didn't really interest me much. I want to have long-term relationships. I joked with one of the coaches, because big hockey section for me unintentionally, but it just worked out that way. ESPN Plus has been the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
There was one Friday, I literally had 2 games on my computer, 2 games on my monitor, and a game where 2 coaches were playing each other on the TV. I had like my hockey command center. So that's kind of part of what I do. I wasn't a hockey player, so I'm not talking about forechecking or their power play, but I'm putting myself back in that emotional space of being on the sidelines, so I don't forget what they're really going through. So I don't make suggestions in a cavalier way, like, oh, just do this, this, and this. Not understanding. I joked with one coach, like, if I'm not feeling great on how it's going, I can turn the TV off, I can change channels, or I can go get a snack. You can't.
That's right.
So I got to make sure I don't forget what you're going through. I can look at their interviews. I can look at effort, general competitive stuff. So I stay connected that way as well. So I try to be on the journey along with them and create an environment they know that there's somebody in their corner for them. So I didn't have a blueprint going into it. I'm still trying to always figure out the best way to do it, but relationships and connection are the big priority for me.
Yeah, and that's the way I kind of think about my time in sports. And I mentioned it a podcast or two ago that I didn't really care about fans, or I didn't really care about how many people were there. I mean, I cared about the people, my coaches, and I cared about my kids, and I cared about the athletic trainer to make sure he was okay, and our marketing guy, and Barca, and everybody in our office. And I just some coaches are better at relationships than others. And I just maybe, could you touch on maybe 2 things that help your relationships?
Honesty,
Mm.
the truth is one of them. Being able to say your truth or how you're really feeling, that's a big one. And understanding in that process, everybody, it doesn't marketing, sports information, athletic training, coaches, student athletes, everybody wants the same thing.
Mhm.
They want the best for the student athletes, they want the best for the department, they want the best for the school or the organization. And it's boy, it's tough. What makes it challenging is when you have passion, that means there's a lot of emotions. Then you throw competition in there
Ooh, yeah.
and results. Boy, that churns that pot up. I think one of the most impactful and effective tools is the pause button. When you build that trust and you have the clarity to hit pause and just take a second because you're surrounded by emotions and competitiveness and intense, to hit pause. Sometimes the pause is, a second, a few minutes. Sometimes it's 24 hours. But that the ability to be honest and truthful and maybe implementing the old pause
Mm.
button because understanding the environment's really emotional. But then just having like, remember when me and you, when we were playing, we were out at the baseball game and the lead singer for Alabama,
Oh
his
my god.
son was playing in the game and we found Alabama songs for every
We played them
half
all.
inning to play till the guy shook his head and he's like, oh man, come on. Taking those moments to just enjoy it and have fun with it and laugh and
Yeah,
reap the benefits, but also understand like, boy, to get to benefits, as they say, again, I keep this ancient philosophy, good can't exist without bad.
right.
So that you embrace both and understand that both are going to happen. And I think that with trust and relationships, boy, you get to have fun like
Yeah,
that and you get through the tough times
right.
as well.
How can coaches or athletic department administrators get in touch with you? Obviously, LinkedIn. I don't know if you want to plug website or any other ways that they can find you.
Yeah, Purscial, which is actually a made up word based off of kind of the mantra of the pursuit of something special. So it's PURSCIAL.net, or my email is scott@Purscial.net. Happy to have conversations, or if you guys, even just to connect with a coach, just to have a chat like that uh, what you guys are doing and what the feedback you've gotten is not surprising to me. Feeling alone is one of the worst feelings there is. And all of a sudden, when you can not feel alone, you hear your stories, you hear your guest stories. Boy, it just adds a little like, oh, there's a light at the end of the tunnel here. I'm not swinging out on this branch by myself. So even if people want to reach out just to have a chat, happy to do that and support in any way I can.
So good, Fitzy. Dude, I'm so happy for you. And I was talking to Barca before we got on. It's just that, man, you took a risk to do what you did. And it's like paying off in spades. Like your demeanor is just so, it was great before, but now it's just so, it is kind of Zen like. It's like calm. But I think it's because you're doing things you really enjoy and you also understand what brings you joy. And so you keep doing, and now you're doing that all the time. And it's awesome. I'm so happy for you, dude. So happy for you.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said, like I said, I was scary, man.
Yeah.
It was so scary. But boy, my wife was on, I came home day and just said, essentially I got to do something different. And she didn't
Mm.
hesitate. And that support and, your kids are behind you and good friends are behind
Yeah.
you. And yeah, when you take the little freedom, boy, it was scary. And, going out on your own and starting a business and doing that. But boy, so worth
Mhm.
it. So worth it. And it's neat. I appreciate that feedback because yeah, heavy isn't quantifiable often. People just feel it or hear it or see it in you that, you can't necessarily see in yourself. So it's nice to hear that
Yeah.
maybe I'm a little lighter these days,
Yeah, I
which
mean, it's
I
just
feel it.
and I think it gives hope to like even guys like us or anybody out there who, you have an idea and you have a passion and you have thoughts that you think you can help somebody. You can do it, right? I mean, you can do
Mm.
it. And I mean, maybe I'm pepping my own self up, but it's just something that you can do and people do it all the time and you're great example of just someone just kind of taking a step. just taking that first step, and then everything else is, now you've worked hard to get to that step, but now here you are.
Yeah, so worth it. So worth it. And then I appreciate being on here because you guys are doing the same thing. It's as you've talked about, is I love that it's creative in the, in the title of it, which it's nice you guys have maintained a sense of humor in what was really tough times, but that sense of humor at times can get people through that, or you can have that conversation, or somebody comes on and say, man, I'm not feeling great. And someone can give you that clarity, go, all right, yep,
Yeah.
this is still worth it. Or I got to make a switch. And
Yeah.
so it's awesome that you guys are doing this and providing this support and voice for people who all over the country are feeling it and don't necessarily have the space to go talk to somebody about
No.
it. So
Just listen
they
to
can
us
listen to you
complain.
guys. It's awesome.
Time to wrap it up.
And that's another edition of No Longer Credentialed. Thanks to all of you listening, and if you like it, tell a friend and give it a 5-star rating on your podcast app of choice. Don't forget to check us out on social media at NLC Pod on X, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, keep grinding.